Using the latest version of MonoTouch on August 13th, 2012, we are going to build a simple login control. I've been trying to do this for quite a while and been quite frustrated as a new MonoTouch user, but I guess that's to be expected. I've never done any iOS programming before, though I'm pretty proficient at .NET and C#. I'm not at iOS, so I'm on a steep learning curve. So first, let's launch MonoDevelop, which you have to run in order to do MonoTouch programming. I'm basically going to say File, New, and I'm going to say New Workspace because I'm just going to make a very simple project. It's going to be a C# project, MonoTouch. I'm going to make an iPhone StoryBoard, and I'm going to make it a master detail, and I'm going to call it My Login Project Video. And I'm going to say OK. So by default, I'm going to get a few files. I'm not going to go into the details, but basically this is my storyboard file. I'm going to double click on that, bring up Xcode, the latest version of Xcode, and you'll see that I've got a navigation controller. I've got three things: a navigation controller, a master, and a detail view. The navigation controller essentially is the glue that ties my master and detail together. So you'll see when I click on something on the master, it'll take me to the detail, and I'll get a button that says take me back. So I'm going to basically create my login control that's going to be my master, it's going to be my login, and my detail is going to be the rest of my app. I mean, I'm not sure that's the best way to do it, but that seems to work for me. So let's take this back into the normal mode that we're used to running in. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is going to be my login page, so I'm going to say my login page. Just change the title, I double clicked on it. Then I'm going to make 3 rows here. And first I'm going to get rid of the word detail. I'm going to single click on it, Control C, I'll go over here, click on the table cell, Command C, Command V, Command V. That gives me my 3 rows. So the first line is going to be my username line. So we come down here and I'm going to grab a text field, drag it in there, do a little centering trick, and I'm going to do Control C, Control V to make another one. That's going to be my password. Just for completeness, I'm going to add a couple labels that's going to say username and password. It's kind of gratuitous for this example, but so we all know there's no secrets. Make a copy of that, Control C, Control V. I'm not speaking loudly enough, turn up your volume because there's nothing I can do about it. Username, password, and then I'm going to create a button. And for those of you that have looked at any of my stuff before, you'll realize I have no design sense, so there's a lot of polishing you can do to make this look good, but I'm not going to do any of that because it won't do any good anyway. So let's, no, it's a stupid big button. Let's make the button about like that, and I'm going to say the button is a login button. And I'm going to center it using that clever little dashes in the middle. Alright, so there's my login screen. So let's do a couple cleanup things first. So on this viewer over here shows me my full page, the table view. So I should have probably done this first. But let's go into the attributes of each line, and I'm going to make it no selection, and I am going to make no disclosure. Disclosure is this little button over here. So again, I'm just going to do the basics here. Selection is none, and disclosure indicator is none, and the same thing on the login button. Disclosure indicator none, and selection none. So now we basically have what looks like a reasonable, okay, it's as good as it's going to get. So we need to basically make the interface elements that are going to appear in MonoTouch. The way we do that is we click on this little icon up here, which brings up the .h file, and I'm going to need a reference to the username. I hold the Control key down and I drag it over to here, and it's going to be an outlet in a UI text field, and I'm going to call this username field, and I'm going to say connect, and I'm going to do the same thing with the password field. I'm going to drag it in there and say password field. Sure hope this is recording. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the button. I'm going to drag it in there, and it's going to say login button. And notice the type is UI button, just like the other ones were text field, and I'm using outlet, not action. More details about that later. So basically that's it. I've done everything I'm going to do in Xcode. So I've got my page with the, click here so you can see it. I've got my username, my login, and my password. So what I always do, though, I'm not sure this is necessary, is I always say File, Save in Xcode, and then I quit Xcode, because I'm just afraid of all the interactions that go on back and forth between the two programs. So now if I look in my root controller, essentially when I created the storyboard, I said I wanted a master detail, so it created two controllers for me, a root view controller and a detail view controller. I look at the root view controller, and I look at their code behind. If I look at their code behind, you'll see all these fields that automatically were created by Mono. I assume Mono looking at the .h file that was created by Xcode, and so Mono created this root view designer.cs file, text field, username, password, login button. So this actually is going to be pretty straightforward. What I have to do next, I go into my root controller, and let's take a look at this login button. This is actually what we're going to use. I go back into my root controller, which has a bunch of events, and I look at the event view did load, and here's the hint: perform any additional steps. So the steps I'm going to be are login button dot what's the event? I think it's like touch. So the event is going to be what is it? Touch up inside, which means that when the person lets go of the button, as long as they haven't slid their finger out of the button, it'll activate. Then I'm going to use the kind of classic Lambda syntax for generating a delegate. And so when I click on the login button, this is going to get executed. So first thing I need is I'm going to need access to the text field. So here in this partial class code behind kind of thing, I have username. So let's come back here and say var username equals text field dot text, and var password. I'm just doing this because it's easier for me to get it right this way. Password field dot text, and let's say this is where we'd actually pass into some service to get the username and password. We're just going to say if username equals password, that's going to be our queue. Obviously not a very good production plan, but it's good for now. I'm doing braces the way Mono likes them, but not the way I like them, but that's just the way it goes. So if it equals, essentially what I'm going to do at this point is I am going to perform, I need to go to that detail page. So let's like leave this on hold for a second. Let's go back to the storyboard. So now we've got a button, and we want to essentially connect this page to this page. So this is called a seg. It got put here by default. Let's name it. This is login to detail. So I'm just simply naming this seg, which is like a segue that gets us from the login page to the detail. And while I'm at it, so this is login to detail. I'm going to store that in my page buffer. Let's just throw some button on or some label up here just to say this is our app, so we know that we got here. Nothing up our sleeve. So I'm going to file, save. Remember, I'm in Xcode now. I lied before and I said I wasn't going to come back to Xcode. So let's quit Xcode. So now what I'm going to do is, in this event, I am going to say if the username equals password, we want to execute that seg. So I'm going to say perform seg, and I have to give it the name of the seg because I could have multiple segs going to different pages. It's very convenient. Forgot the second parameter. Pass in the sender, which is me, and that's it. Big success. Well, if it fails, We want to put up a message of some sort, so I'm going to say using var alert. Got this from one of Miguel's handy dandy projects. You know, there's a alert message everywhere, message box, alert, whatever you want to call it. So I'm sure you could do this a lot better. Alert view, login message. Kind of see the help along here. Username or password, no good. What else do we have here? So we don't need a delegate here. We could actually execute some function. We want it to be an OK button, and we don't have any other parameters. So I think that might be it. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh yeah, that's a using. So obviously at the end of the using, we have to give it a bracket. So now we're going to say alert dot show. Simple as that. So now what we've got here, used to doing control backspace, that doesn't work. So now I've just got a simple, what's going to be my login control. If username equals password, I mean, this is where I'd call some function to actually do it. If it works, it's going to perform login to detail. If it doesn't work, it's going to give an error. See if we can build this project. 0 errors, 3 warnings. I love that. So I'm going to say run it with the iPhone simulator. I'm not actually going to do a debugger at this point. So I'm going to say ABC, and I'm going to say DEF. I didn't mask this, but there's a parameter for that. Password no good. If I change this to ABC, look at that. This is our app. I can go back to my login page. Ta-da!